This is Tales from the Cube, a podcast about call centers, what it's like to work in them, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny and not so funny side of what it's like working in a call center. Hello and welcome to this edition of Tales from the Cube. My name is Cliff. This is episode 23018. It is part 2 of the series dealing with quality, and today we're going to talk about how quality evaluators do their job. QA or quality is an important thing. Quality assessment is what that's all about, and a QA or QE analyst is the person who does it. So we're going to talk about what they do in reference to what we were already speaking about, which of course in 23017, the last episode of quality, we talked about how a call recording is supposed to be set up and done, particularly with regard to some of the things that you have to be aware of. For example, the Personal Information Protection and Electronic and Data Act. I believe that's the PIPEDA that we're talking about. So again, we'll reread that one just because that's such a mouthful. Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. That's what is our guidance here for everything that we do in quality with respect to the idea of making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because if we don't, we could get into some serious trouble with fines up to $100,000 here in Canada, and that is something that is not a good thing. Also being outed as a company that doesn't comply, being forced to comply if we don't do it correctly. And also signing agreements that we have to comply and so on and so forth, and losing trust from the customer. It's not something that we want to see happen. So companies are very, very aware of doing business in Canada that they have rules to follow to ensure that they are practicing the idea of being a person who is aware of what's going on and knows that they have to basically make sure that no wrong comes to the customer. So it's an important part of the quality trait. It has to be done in order to make sure that what we do basically follows the PIPEDA rules here in Canada and other rules in the United States, and those are state by state. Here it's Canada-wide, and there might be some provincial regulations as well that I'm not aware of, but generally speaking, PIPEDA is the main one that focuses and drives the things that we do here in the call center industry with respect to quality. So what a quality analyst or evaluator does essentially is listen to the call. And their job during this particular time of listening is to go forward and score the call for quality purpose. They're looking for tone, they're looking for the attributes of a call to make sure that it's done correctly. They're looking for the compliance to ensure that it's done so that we meet the PIPEDA standards. It's also important that they're making sure that certain parts of what we call a call flow are done. So there's a number of things going on here. So let's start off with the tone of the call. They want to make sure, and when they are doing this, this is a critical thing, that the tone in the conversation between customer and advisor is relevant, is professional, that the customer understands exactly what's going on as per the PIPEDA rules, and also is serviced in a manner which is professional and polite and courteous. The idea here is we want to win customer loyalty. So the thing that we're going to do in this particular thing as agents is make sure that happens, and the quality evaluator is going to make sure that we are doing that. So our tone has to be professional. The other thing too is we want to make sure not to use words that are going to frustrate the customer and stop the customer and make them focus in on the negative things. So words like can't, don't know, getting aggressive with a customer, sometimes that is hard to do though, because what happens is the customer will try to bully you in some ways or socially engineer the call. And so the idea here is you want to be a little bit more relaxed and take a step back and let them vent a little bit and then come back to it and still remain professional. You can say no without actually saying no, although there are times I still say no, or unfortunately, those are other words that we're not supposed to use. But hey, at the end of the day, this is going to happen. We're going to have to sometimes tell a customer, this is not something we're going to be able to continue to do. And there are times in certain circumstances that we have to say to a customer, we're closing the interaction. In my campaign, in our company, we're allowed to disconnect. Now, a lot of companies don't allow this, and I definitely want to address that possibly in another episode. I believe that I already have done that. There's a previous episode that I think I have touched on that. There are times that we do have to say to a customer, we're not going to continue on this call. So here's your case number, here's my name, here's the interaction ID, we're closing the interaction. A lot of companies, as I mentioned, don't allow this, but we do. So we have to do it in a procedural manner. And again, the QE is going to be looking for that. They're going to look for those kinds of things. So tone is a very important. Professionalism, not letting ourselves get into a fight with a customer or even cussing out a customer. That's really a bad thing. I've heard it done. I've actually had conversations with people that have heard this across the floor, and it's unfortunate. It does happen every now and then when we're trying to solve a problem. Sometimes what will happen is we'll get a little frustrated and we'll go, damn it, darn, holy, and we'll have that F-bomb come through just a little bit. That's something we want to avoid because that's professionalism. And even if the customer doesn't hear it, if the QE hears it, that's going to basically affect the score in professional manner. So the tone, your language, how you're handling the call is going to be something they're looking at. That's an attribute. Are we making sure that we are following the rules? For example, in most situations, we're not supposed to give you, as a customer, if you're listening to this, we're not supposed to give you your information back. So we should make sure that you read it to us as opposed to us reading it to you. So a customer might say, well, do you have my phone number? Yes, I have your phone number. Well, what is it? Well, why don't you tell me? Sometimes a customer will get really frustrated by this and they'll say, well, you know it. Why don't you tell me it? No, I need to let you know that it's important for our security that you read it back. I don't know who you are. That said, you obviously know that you're speaking with the proper company because you've called us, you've reached out to us, but I still don't know who you are. So for me to basically give you back your information would be a privacy violation. I need you to go forward and give me that information. If you explain it in that way, it is going to be much easier. So we don't want to ruin the compliance piece here by giving information to the customer that we're not supposed to. Also, are we following procedures and doing things like working off articles if we have them, or troubleshooting templates or sales templates? Are we reading, for example, verbatim items, particularly when we do a sale? Sometimes there are verification processes within that, and we have to verify the customer's information. QE is going to look for that. They're going to look for the idea that we have got in our mind that we're following a call flow, and that we're going to do this in every single call. It's going to be dun, 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 dun. And it starts with even the simplest thing like a greeting. Sometimes a greeting is standardized. So, for example, I might call a bank, for example, like Toronto Dominion, and they'll say, well, thank you for calling Toronto Dominion. How can we make your day better? That's a greeting. So, and I actually have heard that greeting. And it's the reason for that is because they want a brand. So are we branding? Then in, for example, a sales order, where you might be asked to promote a particular product. And so are we doing that? QE is going to listen for this. They're going to look for it to see if we did the call flow, if we actually went forward with that. When I was with Bell Canada, we actually had what we called a cone of sales. So it was an introduction, and then we went through all the way down to the point of selling something. And we had to do this on even the customer service element calls. There was always that sales element that they wanted done, and QE looked for that. So it's important that the quality evaluator get what he needs to score you and pass, and that's important. So those are things that are going to be there, and they do this by looking at a particular set of values and scoring mechanisms in their sheet that they have in front of them. So they'll look at the critical items, compliance items, sales and verification flows, troubleshooting that's been done, things like this. They'll go through all of that, and they'll look and they'll check off the boxes and write their notes and say, okay, this is perfect, or this is not. And then what will happen is they will come back to the rep. Now, in other cases too, don't forget, they're also looking for, did you do your notes and your case notes? If you have a logging procedure that you have to do, then they'll look for that too. They'll look at the case notes. Some companies don't use that. Many companies do. They log the customer interactions. So it's important for everybody to understand that, hey, this is going to be a thing. You're going to have to make sure that you are logging your case. And it might be a certain format. For example, I have a type of case that I do when I give a special type of exception to a customer that I actually have a format. I actually have to put this into the body of my notes. If the QE doesn't see it, it's a fail. So it's an important thing. All of this basically comes down to making sure we're meeting the standards for PIPEDA, that our protection of people's privacy and managing the electronic documents element is actually done. So it is an important part of the quality element to implement all of that. So that's what PIPEDA does. It drives the quality side of things. What happens after the scorecard is done, somebody else maybe to review, just in case there's something wrong, or they think, I don't know, was this right, was this not? It gets coached. And the coaching element is usually done either by the quality evaluator or a team manager or lead. Sometimes the lead even does his own QE as well. And they come up and speak to you about what the interaction was that they listened to and how you did, how you fared in the call. And what they're supposed to do is find what you did right and what you did not do right. And if there's a big fail, what happened here? And they want to investigate that to make sure that this doesn't occur again. So they're going to be looking at you and saying, okay, how did this happen? Why did you miss this attribute? Were you following call flows? Were you following the directions of the campaign? And if you are, able to explain that, they're not going to pass you, of course, but they're going to say, okay, you knew this, so something must have went on in the call here. And they might have already noticed it, so they might pick up on it and say, oh, okay, you got distracted here and you missed this attribute. And that's happened to me many times, where I've had, great call flow and everything, and all of a sudden I miss an attribute. In fact, I've had over 1 or 2 years without a quality fail, and just recently that happened to me, and I was like, oh, that was a shock. What was the quality fail for? What was the issue? I forgot to make a mention of what I was going to do with respect to screen sharing with a customer. I didn't tell them that I would be pausing the session, and I didn't pause the session. So that's a compliance fail. That's a very big one too. So I was quite surprised. Over a year and a half to 2 years, no compliance fails, and that one got me. But it was such a rare case, even a evaluator said to me, we don't see these too often, so I can see why you made the mistake. They understood that. But now I'm very careful. On every interaction, I tell the customer, hey, if I put you on hold, I'm pausing or shutting down the screen share. So if I have to transfer you, I'm putting you on hold. And usually what I will do is I will just simply say, I'm going to exit the screen share before I do the transfer. And the reason being is because of that thing. So you kind of learn your lesson. And things change too with quality. So some things will be one way 1 month and change the next. So quality evaluators have to keep up with that. That's part of their job too, is to train, and they are also evaluated by a senior group that looks at their evaluations to make sure they're scoring correctly, and it's called calibration. So they're calibrated, so it's not just for their word against yours or some willy-nilly thing. Although I listened with one company who said that if you challenge a quality score and you fail it and you challenge it, and we find that we're right, we're going to fire you. You know what I did immediately is, hi, nice knowing you. That's not right. So I do have an opinion about quality evaluators, which I'm going to get to in a few moments here. But what I want to say overall is that, generally speaking, quality evaluators are there to help. They're there to guide, coach, and make sure that everything is right in the call. And there are times that you're going to come across an evaluation that is perfect. Nothing went wrong. The call was beautiful. And the evaluator is going to look and say, you did everything right. And I've gotten many of those. And there's nothing for me to coach to. So you did this really well. Maybe some tips and tricks that I can offer you is this. So, and I've had that happen too. But there have been times where a quality evaluator has come to me and said, that was a perfect call. You didn't miss anything. And then there are times it's like 2 or 3 attributes have been failed. It's like, oh, okay. And usually what I will do is I will challenge when I see just one. I will challenge it, I will look at it, and I'll say, okay, maybe something went wrong here, unless it's so blatant, even I realize, oh, I didn't do that. It's okay, cool. But if I think there's something wrong, I will challenge it. And my opinion is that with regard to quality and quality evaluators and coaching and such, is that it should be a collaborative effort. I've always stated that in this podcast, that everything should be collaborative in its approach. Because the bottom line is that if you're not collaborating with the team members, you're not going to get the best out of everybody. And so it's important to be collaborative. Even in the quality, it's important. Even in the quality, it's really, truly important to have that. Because without that collaboration, you're just going to have confrontation. And there was for a while in my campaign a series of confrontations that seemed to be happening with our quality people, and it still goes on a little bit, but it was really bad at one point. It was just like us versus them thing, and it was not good at all, because that's not the way it should work. Quality is supposed to help the company, help the advisor and the customer in the end get the best experience possible. So one of the first things I would say, in my opinion of this, is that evaluators need to have a 360 view of everything that's going on, and understand that calls are not black and white. They're gray. They're colored in many different hues as well. The customer is also going to be different on every call. So there will be boxes that we put people in, and we do, but there's going to be slight changes in those elements, and we have to expect that. So a good quality evaluator has a 360-degree angle on this. They look from the agent perspective, the customer perspective, and the company perspective, and they go and do the scoring on that. So it's important, because it's a relevant thing, because it affects so much, and it can even get you into a position, if you're an advisor, to where your job is on the line and could be lost. And I actually had one evaluator say to me that we were unprofessional. He swore. He said the word damn. Now, to me, damn is not a swear word. I'm sorry, it's not. Damn. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would think that's a swear word. But according to the attribute for the company that I work on behalf, damn is considered a swear word. Okay. But I still challenged it. I still was very angry about it, and I let the evaluator know in certain terms, and in an email that or chat, I think, that I really didn't like the way they scored that call. And it actually got to my manager, and he said, oh man, why'd you do that? And it was an awful fight. Another time I felt that I was targeted by an evaluator, and that was an interesting conversation as well, because I saw a number of things happening here that really kind of concerned me. So what I did is I challenged them. I said, what are you doing? This seems to be with you always not passing your evals. What are you doing? This looks like this to me. Now, it did get investigated, and that's a key thing. A good company will actually investigate even the evaluator and make sure that they're doing the right thing, because the bottom line here is that we don't want to have agents targeted. That's a bad thing to do. It's not really the way we should run a business in any way, shape, or form. If I was running a business and I was doing a quality aspect, I would want to make sure that I'm fair with my staff, and that my staff under me, if I'm an evaluator leader, is treating the people right. So I do know that this gentleman was actually looked at. He was clear, and he was not wrong. In a lot of ways, he was actually very right. But the appearance of this, they wanted to make sure, hey, wait a minute, this advisor is complaining about this. This could get bad. So it was cleared up, and this guy and I are actually somewhat friendly to each other still. So it's really good that we actually have a bit of a friendship outside of work. More of a, hey, how are you kind of thing. But it turned out well. But at the time, I was like, no, I don't think so. And it did get quite a bit of a discussion and a bit of a ruckus too. Having said all of this, what I think is important to reiterate, is that it's a very, very important thing to be collaborative with team members, not to target not to be aggressive as an evaluator, not to just look for all the bad stuff. It's important to basically score a call in a meaningful manner in a way that is going to educate the advisor, agent, sales rep, or even the verifier, because the verifier is also evaluated, on procedures and compliance rules and call flows so that they are doing the job in a manner that is correct and efficient, benefits the customer, benefits the company, and gives the same feel on every call to every customer. That's what really the quality evaluator team is looking to do. Make sure it's all the same for every single customer. There's no difference. When we see differences, that's a problem, because then we've lost continuity in the call, and this is something that we don't want to have. Every call with every interaction and every advisor must sound the same across all teams. So it's an important thing that the quality evaluator is doing. And also, they must make sure that the PIPEDA regulations, the rules with respect to privacy and the way documents are handed, are also done so that no violations occur. So there you have it, my take on quality and the rules behind it. Episodes 23017 and 23018 in the can. I really appreciate your coming and listening to our podcast. I hope that you'll send feedback at 4eyesfreelancing@gmail.com, and that you'll continue finding this episode interesting and sharing it, and of course liking us. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks again to everyone for taking the time out to listen to our little podcast here on whichever channel you do listen through. We'll see you in the next episode. My name is Cliff. Take care and be well. Thanks for listening to Tales from the Cube. You can hear us on all the major podcast platforms such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. We'll see you in the next episode.